Hello friends, in the series which we are doing on the making of contemporary India from 1950 to 1990s, today we will talk about foreign policy and the making of the non-alignment. And as all of us are aware that India became independent in 1947, and thereafter the kind of problems which were existing in India in the context of poverty, unemployment, and all these problems they got reflected in the way India took up to planning in agriculture, industry, etc. And in that particular context, we also have to see that how India was trying to connect with the outer world, with the foreign nations. So in this perspective, we are trying to understand, we will try to understand the foreign policy. And in our Indian foreign policy, the making of the non-alignment at that point of time was very, very important, because India, in the new reality of the Cold War, where you have both USA and USSR as the two superpowers, and how both of them they were trying to seek support of other nations or countries. So and both of them they have a totally different set of systems. One was the capitalist system and the other was the communist system. So from the ideological point of view, both these countries they were different, and they were trying to seek the support of the various nations of Asia and Africa. And on the other hand, India became independent from the colonial rule, and India realized the kind of problems which were there at that point of time. And at the same time, India also felt that if they will align with any of these two superpower blocks, then it will create some kind of problems for them in terms of taking any kind of independent stand on the international relations or international issues. So India felt that to be non-aligned in this way to any power bloc in terms of having their own independent opinion on the issues of the world will provide them an opportunity where they will be able to exhibit their own stand at different points of time. So today we will try to talk about the various ideas which are associated in the context of the foreign policy, and how the ideas relating to Panchsheel which were being enunciated in 1950s and how they were important at that point of time, how the idea of the non-alignment, that how non-alignment was central to the Indian foreign policy in 1950s 60s, and the problems or the challenges which were associated in terms of being a non-aligned country. So in that context, I'd like to refer to some of the readings: Bipin Chandra et al., India After Independence; Ramchandra Guha's India After Gandhi; B.L. Grover, An Introduction to Modern India. Some of the readings which one can refer when one is talking about the foreign policy of India. And they also provide some kind of insights regarding the kind of background in which this foreign policy was in a way followed by the Indians. When you talk about the kind of challenges in India, then we find that at that point of time, when India became independent, then partition happened in 1947, and with partition we find that so many people they lost their habitat, how they had to move from one area or one country to another, and because of which so much rehabilitation of the people was to be undertaken. So this was an important issue, and how the issue of the nation building at that point of time was important, that how India when it became a nation, in that sense that it became a free country, but at the same time the diverse language groups, the people belonging to different caste, sectors, sects, or for that matter religion, all these people they had to be united in some way. So the idea of unity in diversity was also talked about at this point of time. At the same time, we felt that the socio-economic issues of that particular period, that India not being a developed country, and how the issue of economic development was paramount at that point of time, the way the economic disparity was there, how the gender disparities they were also being followed at that point of time. So when we try to understand the foreign policy in that particular background, then we find that how India tried to pursue an independent foreign policy, and in that policy we find that there was a lot of pressure from the big powers, that how they tried that how India is not able to follow some kind of an independent policy, and it may try to side with one or the other power. But we find that how the challenges which were there during the freedom struggle and in the early years of independence, they were there, and these kind of challenges during this point of time, how these challenges were to be taken by the people, those who were associated with the foreign policy issues. And we find that the non-aligned movement, especially when we talk about the non-aligned movement, we find that how the world was divided into two hostile power blocks at that point of time after the Second World War, and one was led by the US and the Western powers, and other by the Soviet Union. So we find that there was some kind of a conflict for the supremacy of the world, and both these power blocks, they felt that they were in a way ready, or they were the one who had to lead the world, and both of them, they had different kinds of ideologies, as I told you, the capitalist as well as the communist. So from that point of view also, they were trying to seek the support of other countries, and we find that if the poor countries of the Asian and the African nations, if they will try to align with these countries, then they will not be able to gain anything from that. Rather, they will have a lot of things to lose if they become some sort of pawns in their contest of power. So their main concerns, the concern of the Asian and the African nations which had become independent at this point of time, their main concern was to solve their problems, and these problems, they were relating at that point of time to the issues of poverty, issues of unemployment, gender disparity. So all these things, they had to be tackled by these countries, rather than becoming some sort of pawns in the power game of the developed world. So India felt that how India had to get on with the kind of the issue of development which was quite required at that point of time, and India did not want to indulge in any kind of a war and any kind of a situation which will create some kind of a conflict with other nations. So their main concern was with regard to the establishment of peace, and that is how we know that India was not ready to become part of various kinds of pacts or various kinds of alliances which were being formed for different purposes. If you see on the screen, Manila Treaty, Seattle, Santo, and how India did not want that it should become part of such kinds of pacts or such kind of alliances, and which wanted to dominate the world, which wanted to maintain their own existence in terms of attaining or in terms of establishing their power. And that is how India was talking in the framework of the non-alignment. And the policy of non-alignment which was followed by India had a lot of critics. They were trying to discredit India in some way. They were trying to call it as some sort of an immoral neutrality, as John Foster Dulles talks about it, and how India was in a sense felt that India should have that kind of a freedom where it should be able to decide for itself whether it was a right thing or it was a wrong thing, and it should not come under in any kind of a pressure. And we find that the people, those who were trying to in a way criticize, as the example of Dulles I gave, and how Jawaharlal Nehru, who was also central to the kind of policy which was followed by India in terms of the foreign policy, he was also very well aware that how the problems of fascism, colonialism and racialism, they were there, and the threat which was there with regard to the nuclear bomb at that point of time, and the kind of aggression which was there. So any kind of a situation which was leading to the situation of colonialism, racialism, etc., so all that had to be evaded in some way, that had to be fought in some way, and India felt that how it did not have to in any way align with any of the power blocks of that time, and how the countries of Asia and Africa which had recently become independent, they should not become any kind of a fodder for these big nations or the powerful nations or the superpowers, that how they should not become pawns in their hands. And that is how India felt that any kind of a development which was happening in the world, so it was best for the Indians to decide whether they wanted to go for it or go against it, whether that kind of a situation was harmful or useful in the context of the international relations. So whenever such kind of a situation will arise, then only India will decide for itself that what kind of a stand India wants to take for itself, and how India will be able to in a way sustain itself against the colonial and the imperial power blocks of those times. And we see that how when India also enters the UN, United Nations, and how different countries of the world which became independent during that point of time, and then later as well from Asia and Africa. So the numbers of the membership of United Nations it increased during that time, and we find that when you talk about the non-alignment, it was in a way trying to advance the process of democratization of the international relations, because when one will be non-aligned with any of the power blocks, then it will be able to decide for itself in terms of the international relations. So there will be some kind of a democratization. This is what India felt at that point of time. It in a way was trying to follow that kind of a policy, and at the same time it was also trying to maintain its relations on that particular aspect. So when we tend to understand the non-aligned movement in certain framework, then we'll find that it was non-aligned movement, or NAM was, or being non-aligned was not a blueprint for any kind of a policy. Rather it was some sort of an approach, a framework, a method, and not a straitjacket but a lodestar by which the young nation could steer its course in dark night. So we find that India was trying to find its way in a world which was dominated by the superpowers, and when we try to understand the non-alignment, then it was a approach, it was some kind of a framework, it was some sort of a method by which every time when any kind of a situation will arise, then India will decide for itself that the kind of decision which it has to take for itself in the due course of time. So we have to understand non-alignment in that particular framework, and how at different points of time in 1950s as well we find that various kinds of problems they cropped up, for example Korea War, or Indochina, or war with China in 1962, or some kind of conflict in 1947 with Pakistan over Kashmir. So all these kinds of things, they were happening in the international affairs, and India had to take some kind of a stand at different on different issues. And when India will be able to take its own stand, keeping in mind its own rationale, its own interest, and not aligning with any superpower or power bloc, then it will be able to do justice to that particular issue or event. So we find that when we talk about non-aligned movement, then we don't have to talk it in the framework of any kind of a rigidity in the foreign policy, and how the various kinds of needs of the Indian society, they had to be kept in mind. And we also have to take into note that how it was also could also be seen in that framework, that how when India joined the Commonwealth and the Commonwealth countries, and how India was also in a way criticized by other nations when it joined the Commonwealth at that point of time, that India was in a way trying to support the cause of imperialism. And over a period of time, these countries also realized the way India was trying to handle itself, the way it was trying to project its own image in the context that the kind of a stand which was taken by India at that point of time on different issues, and different stands sometimes on the same issue, keeping in mind the way other Western powers or foreign powers they were reacting. So it also shows the strength of the non-aligned movement which India supported. So, when you talk about the objectives of the foreign policy of India, then the way India was trying to support the colonial and the ex-colonial countries against against the colonialism, and non-alignment was in a way supportive of this kind of an aspect. And India was also talking in the framework of world peace, that how world peace should, because India had seen the dangers during atomic bombings or the kind of war which could have escalated at that point of time, and how the horrors which were there in Japan when on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when bombs they were being dropped. So, India realized that such kind of a violent kind of a streak in the international affairs will be able to destroy the different countries of the world. And when you try to see it in the framework of the non-violent struggle which India was part of, and later so many other nations they followed the non-violent struggle of India. So, India was in a way talking in that particular framework where the Gandhian struggle of non-violence, that kind of a conviction which was there. And India also realized that India had to oppose war in that way, and any kind of a nuclear conflict in the larger framework will not be a good situation from any perspective, not only from the Indian perspective, but from the perspective of the world. And from that framework, when we try to understand the Indian situation, we find that Panchsheel or the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence, they were very important, and how they were trying to conduct relations among the different countries of the world. So, Panchsheel, when you try to understand Panchsheel, we will try to see that how mutual respect for each other's territorial integrity and sovereignty was one of the important aspects for Panchsheel, when a country will not try to go far beyond its borders, and how it will respect the territorial integrity of the other nations or other countries, and at the same time not only its own sovereignty, but at the same time the sovereignty of other countries had to be respected in some way. So, Panchsheel was talking in that framework. Then another aspect was in the context of non-aggression. Third was non-interference in each other's internal affairs. Next was equality and mutual benefit, and fifth was peaceful coexistence. So, we find that all these kinds of things where you are not trying to be an aggressor on the other state or other country, where you are not trying to interfere in the internal affairs of another nation, when you are trying to be equal with others, where you are seeing that how mutual benefit of each other takes place in some way, and the peaceful coexistence of the different countries of the world in the same time were some of the important concerns of Panchsheel. And India felt that when all these kinds of aspects they will be in a way followed by the different countries of the world, then it will be able to provide that kind of an atmosphere where different countries of the world they will prosper. From that perspective, we find that India also engaged in different kinds of conferences at the international level, and how different countries, when they came up to discuss all these kinds of issues at the world stage, then they were able to communicate their own ideas or viewpoints to each other, and they were also at the same time able to realize that they will be able to provide some kind of support to each other in the later conferences. So, we find that there was a conference in March 1947, Asian Relations Conference, where more than 20 countries they came up to Delhi, and they were talking in the framework of Asian independence and how Asia could assert itself on the world stage. And another conference in the later times which was talking about the effort of the Dutch to recolonize Indonesia in December 1948. So, we find that India was not only having these kind of conference in the framework of the general idea, but at the same time when an important specific issue took place, then these nations they were ready to in a way support and help each other, and how the different states or different countries which were there in the Indian Ocean, and most Asian countries and Australia, they came to this conference, which happened after the Asian Relations Conference in March 1947. The conference which I am talking about held in 1948, and the conference, it resolved to deny all facilities to Dutch shipping and sent its resolution to UN. So it created a lot of pressure, and within a week Security Council resolved that a ceasefire be declared and Indonesian national government be restored. So when all these countries of the world, they came together, and when they tried to exert some kind of a pressure on the nation which was trying to be aggressor, then it was some kind of a healthy practice, and it was also related to the issue of decolonization. And India was one of the important supporters of decolonization initiative, and how it was in a way taken at other conferences also, in Colombo in 1954, where the Asian Leaders Conference was held, and Afro-Asian Conference in Bandung, Indonesia in 1955. So this kind of an issue of the idea of decolonization was definitely there, and India was talking in that particular framework. And when we try to understand this Bandung conference, then it was some sort of precursor to the Belgrade non-aligned conference, as it passed resolution on world peace and dangers of nuclear weapons. So we find that all these conferences which were happening in different parts of the world at different points of time, so they were also serving some kind of a case where these nations, they were able to come together at a platform where they could discuss their own issues at these conferences. And finally we find that non-aligned conference which was held at Belgrade, and how it in a way passed resolutions on the world peace, and it was also talking in the framework of the dangers of the nuclear weapons. And in this way we find that in 1961, when Nehru and Nasser of Egypt and Tito of Yugoslavia, they came together to call for the nuclear disarmament and peace in Belgrade in 1961. So these conferences, they led to a situation where they were talking that non-aligned movement could in a way could be seen in this particular framework, that the leaders of these countries, they were talking about the nuclear disarmament and peace in Belgrade. So these kind of issues, they were central to the world situation, keeping in mind the First and the Second World War, and there was a threat of the Third World War, when these countries, they will not be able to accommodate each other. So non-alignment in that sense will try to keep them in such kind of a situation where they will be trying to support each other. They will be in such a situation where any kind of a conflict could also be avoided. So in the context of the foreign policy, we will continue our talk or our discussion to the next session. Thank you very much.